an audio engineer, I'm greatly disturbed that DEP hasn't done any previous studies, gone out of state to see what other compressors do in other states, and just come here and start understanding all these permits. There were no air quality tests taken prior to this invasion, and I find it very outrageous that this is happening at all, without consideration of people's properties that aren't leasing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Barbara Clifford. I'm sorry?
I want to send mine by mail.
Okay, thank you. Next is Jay Sweet.
My name is Jay Sweeney, J-A-Y, S-W-E-N-E-Y, and I live in Falls Township, Wyoming County. I am opposed to the construction of the Herkey Compressor Station. I grew up in South Philadelphia, not far from the industrialized banks of the Schuylkill River, with its oil refineries, coke plant, and electric generation facilities. Philadelphia newspaper described this area as Cancer Alley. I moved to Wyoming County nearly 30 years ago for the clean air and clean water. The compression station and the natural gas industry is a threat to both. The recent explosion at a compressor station in Susquehanna County illustrates the danger of these compressor stations, and the immediate restart shows the arrogance and indifference of the operators. Where is DEP enforcement? Is DEP monitoring emissions from this facility? The mission of the DEP is to protect Pennsylvania's air, land, and water from pollution and provide for the health and safety of Pennsylvania citizens through a clean environment. Granting permission to construct the Herkey Compressor Station will do none of the above. Addressing the gentleman that spoke about property owners with gas leases versus environmentalists, Commonwealth property is taken without just compensation to extract this gas. If you can extract this gas without using my water, without using my property, go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Frank Flynn.
I moved from northeastern Pennsylvania 32 years ago for the purpose of living a clean, healthy lifestyle, free control of what goes in my body and the bodies of my family. Now, due to the side effects of gas drilling, to become a parent, this may no longer be possible. I employ the Department of Environmental Protection to protect my environment and the emissions that are trespassing from the compressor stations onto my personal property and personal property owners. I demand that the Department protect the rights of the citizens, especially the agri protecting the rights of the corporations. Remember, the corporations do not get sick from their own activities. They have no body parts. We do, and you do. Are you going to protect us? If so, how? If not, why? And also, I noticed when I came in, the signal security guard to check my briefcase. I had him look in your bed.
Thank you.
Good. Inspector Davis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Why not? You can start my bed, and I'll start your bed.
Yes, they technically came in. Thank you.
You inspected your bed and came in?
When that came in, they did.
You inspected your bed.
Yes.
He even inspected my briefcase, he was sitting on it.
Are you done with your testimony?
And can I have your name also?
Yes, you did. I didn't do your name.
No, your name.
Frank Flynn. Oh, Colleen.
Connie.
Thank you.
Now this.
Thank you. My next is Greg Stevens.
I'm Craig Stevens, C-R-A-I-G-S-T-E-V-E-N-S, Silverlake Township, Pennsylvania. Thank you for holding the hearing. Thank you, Chief, for being here to represent your company and the representatives of DEP I'm a sixth-generation landowner. My family's been on the same corner in Silver Lake Township for 180 years. My mother's from Oswego, New York. I'm a fifth generation from New York State. I wasn't born here. I was born in California. Grew up in the smog there. And the reason I have a problem with all the activities going on, I have a laser pipeline. I'm a partner with Laser Midstream, which is now Williams. I have a half a mile of pipeline across my property. 200 yards behind my home is the pipeline across my neighbor's property. I'm imagining a compressor station dropped in the field right behind the house. I haven't seen that yet, but I'll be looking for that coming soon. My problem is, growing up in Southern California with the pollution being so bad in the late 60s, the breathing was difficult when you exercised outside. I was a competitive swimmer. The only thing that changed that was when the federal government stepped in and put in the Clean Air Act in 1972, and then when I got in high school and swimming, you didn't have the same issues. My concern is nobody moves to the country or lives here to have industrial activity in their community. Nobody does it. Now, the fact that it's come here, okay, we all have to live with it, but I'm telling you, nobody rushes to live here because they want to live near a compressor station or a pipeline or a gas rig going up or down. We talk about the compressor station with Chief. Please remember, if you hear from Chief, just like I asked Chesapeake people or Williams, you're guests here. We invited you here in our community. Some of us invited you here so that we could get rich off of our minerals and our property, but some of our neighbors didn't. So when the gentleman spoke earlier and said that he doesn't want people telling him to do what to do with his land, it works the same both ways. If what happened on your property, stayed on your property in these instances, I would have no problem at all. But the 400 trucks a day that are driving 50 feet across the front of my house on Silver Creek Road, and that's been going on for a year now, that's not on that property of the person who the well pad is going on. The same with the compressor station. When it gets dropped in your backyard, we have the noise, we have the pollution, and guess what? 2 weeks ago we found out, even though Laser, when they sold all of us landowners, there's no problem with having a 16-inch high pressure line in your backyard and a compressor station right next to a school in Dallas Township. They go boom. Now I love when I've got the paper right here with the report. Williams will have to conduct a full evaluation of the cause and impact of the explosion and submit the findings and report to state regulators, DEP spokeswoman Colleen Connolly said. State regulators are still determining whether Williams was operating under its permit limits at the time of the accident, or if the incident will affect state decisions on pending Williams permit, she said. I hope we're considering that for this station too, Ms. Connolly. State regulators do not yet know what caused the spark that ignited the gas trapped in the building. Emergency triggers quickly shut off the flow of gas to the station, and the fire burned out when the methane burned off, DEP and Williams officials said. Williams spokeswoman Helen Humphrey said workers were able to return to the compressor station building late Thursday to begin evaluating the site. Whether you know this or not, Representative DEP, we were told Williams fired that back up at 2 in the morning that night on Friday early morning. Against your recommendations, imagine when we found out that the fire departments that came from 30 miles in all directions, not one of them had the phone required to put out a natural gas fire. Not one. They had to wait an hour and a half for it to come from Lackawanna County. We were the only ones with the capability of putting anything on that fire. That'd be like showing up at your house when there's a fire with an empty tanker truck with no water in it. Doesn't make much sense, does it? I hope Chief will consider that and make sure that the fire stations around this property have the proper material to be able to fight that fire and not put our first responders' lives in jeopardy to show up and stand around. I was thinking about driving around and bringing a couple hot dogs and a stick to roast them on, because that's all anybody did was stand around and watch that thing burn.
So you get 30 seconds.
Thank you. Remember folks, we don't mind you coming here. We like to get rich off our minerals too. But if I have to have thousands of truck trips a day and all the emissions that come from that, I have to deal with venting pipelines and compressor stations emitting noise and pollution, I'm rethinking my excitement about having this industry here over the last couple of years. I'm thinking just say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tom
My name is Tom, T-H-O-M, W-E-L-B-Y. Blowing the wind. That's where Bob Dylan's song told us to look for the answers. In the case of compressor stations, what is blowing in the wind is significant. In the past, the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania has provided testimony regarding ongoing questions regarding air quality issues with a variety of pollutants from compressor stations that are blowing in the wind. My name is Tom Welby, I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Wyoming County League of Women Voters, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. We appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony to you this evening about other issues related to compressor stations. The League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania has conducted a statewide study of natural gas extraction from Marcellus Shale with addendums on pipelines, and on pooling. We've adopted positions based on consensus and concurrence that prompt our testimony today. We support siting of natural gas pipelines, including compressor stations, through coordinated federal, state, regional, and local efforts that are objective and responsive to safety considerations, accurate environmental assessments, county conservation districts, land use planning agencies, and local communities. The process should include adequate public notice of local stakeholders from the beginning of the process, convenient input venues, timelines reflective of Pennsylvania municipalities' planning code, consistency with existing state and local regulation, and mediation process to resolve conflict. We applaud the Department of Environmental Protection for coming the extra mile to heat our community. We urge you to coordinate efforts regarding the review of this permit with other agencies as noted in our position. This would better serve to protect the public health and the environment, which are hallmarks of your mission. The League further supports regulation for the safety of natural gas pipelines that encompasses the entire transmission system, including gathering lines with standard location data, current comprehensive maps that are publicly accessible, ongoing inspection, one-call coverage, authorization, emergency hazard response contingencies, adequately funded maintenance plans, a reserve trust to compensate for unanticipated events, and mandated best practices to promote the integrity of the system. Reports of the recent explosion of the lead for a compressor station in neighboring Susquehanna County has given pause to ponder the safety of these natural gas operations and the resulting unanticipated consequences. We urge DEP to consider delaying or slowing the review process of additional compressor stations until further clarity is obtained regarding the exact circumstances of the unfortunate event and necessary safeguards that must be put in place to prevent future mishaps. Here are some answers that we encourage you, in concert with other state and federal agencies, to find blowing in the wind after the Lathrop incident on March 29. Was the Lathrop facility constructed properly and inspected according to accepted standards and/or best practices? Were proper safety protections in place and operational? Were there double check systems installed to prevent explosions? Were causes traced to human, mechanical, or structural error? And if so, will the Department of DEP and/or other agencies call for modifications to be made in design, construction, and/or training personnel to mitigate future incidents? And will the investigation be publicly available? What was in the black plume of smoke shown in the pictures of the event? For what do you test? What were the contaminants and related levels that the air monitors reported? What gases were burned off and blown in the wind? To what pollutants were emergency personnel and those down with the event potentially exposed? And had exposed persons, including emergency responders, been screened for potential health-related issues? What is the cumulative effect and impact of all the compressors currently being permitted on air quality in this region? As more are needed to meet demands, how will this alter the permitting process, the number and location of air monitoring facilities, the training of your inspectors, and the impact on public health and the environment? What modifications will be made in permitting of hazardous substances in air quality to show materials of explosive potential by the Department of Environmental Protection in Class 1 areas? Those living in low-density rural areas are currently outside the purview of the Public Utility Commission. Finally, the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania supports measures to insulate regulatory agencies from political influences and other considerations provided by the natural gas companies that are authorized to regulate.
So you have 30 seconds.
This would prevent the appearance of a conflict of interest in political potential ethical concerns. As citizens, we would like to trust natural gas operators who law the safety of the industry and DEP who have responded similarly to the testimony given in previous hearings. However, we believe that it is imperative that government agencies verify claims and reports independently as they use their authority to regulate industrial operations to protect the health and the safety of the public and the Commonwealth. And we urge all Pennsylvanians to add your voice to those that will bring the winds of regulatory change to come blowing through the Commonwealth and protect our constitutional right to clean air and water while allowing for economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Thomas Quinta, J-I-U-N-T-A, and I'm a physician that works about 20 miles south of here in the Wyoming Valley. And I'd like to talk about the cumulative effects that this air quality problem we're having from the natural gas industry, and I see it on a daily basis with patients. I have a son that has asthma. I had a patient about 2 weeks ago that's a gas industry worker that works with transferring flowback fluid, and he's been having respiratory problems just from the emissions from that, and he couldn't even be intubated because of that. I read the air quality studies, the recent study out of the University of Colorado in Denver, talking about how air quality has turned out to be worse than they thought in the Denver area. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, the studies that show air quality from the natural gas industry over the last 10 years being worse or equal to all of the auto emissions that are accumulated in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's actually increased incidence of breast cancer in that area from the emissions. The Argyle, Texas asthma rate is up to 25% compared to the national average of 8%. So I'm concerned about the cumulative impacts. Recent study that showed Erie, Pennsylvania's air quality smog is worse as LA. So the question I have is, I don't know how many compressor stations we have in Pennsylvania. Say we have 1,000 compressor stations, and say each one meets the standards of the noxious emissions that are allowed under law. If we have another 50,000 gas wells and there's maybe one compressor station for every 50 wells, that's an extra 1,000 compressor stations. So let's say we double the amount of compressor stations. What's the limit? How far do we go? How many of these emissions do we allow? What kind of testing is DEP doing downstream and downwind? Are we doing the cumulative studies, the before air quality impact? I want to know what kind of studies are being done ahead of time. Who's protecting us and who's monitoring us? With what recently happened at the Lathrop compressor explosion, obviously DEP is not doing their job if Williams can just start up the compressor station the day after. I mean, the public expects that the organization and the regulatory agency that is supposed to be protecting the public, the Department of Environmental Protection, should set limits on this stuff. How far do we go? Everybody has relatives with asthma, everybody has relatives with breast cancer, with other cancer-related events. Many of these are being caused by the air pollutants. I take offense at the landowner that said that there's a strategy here to block the industry and that he should be able to do whatever he can on his land. No, what you do on your land affects the air quality downwind where I live, and I don't think that anything goes. And I want to know who's protecting us. Thank you.
G-U-E-Z. I'm a Dallas resident, a homeowner, taxpayer, and also a physician in Northeast Pennsylvania. My concern goes to the issue of public health and what all these compressor stations may do to us. There's already some data out west, and what I'd like to bring to your attention, some recent studies, just some point time that Dr. Twp already alluded to. Asthma represents a growing health problem in the Dallas-Fort Worth region where 1 in 4 children ages 8 and 9 has lung disease. Emissions from the Barnett Shale higher than all of the motor vehicle traffic in that region. In Utah and Wyoming, where there's little truck traffic flow, hydrofracking alone can achieve a ground level ozone above the legal attainment. And I believe that was one of the studies that the EPA had conducted in Wyoming that said that. The epidemiology of lung conditions in areas that have pristine air becomes similar to cities like New York City. In the Green River Basin in Wyoming, the air quality is worse than the worst days in LA. In Jackson Hole, Wyoming, ground level ozone measured to be more than twice the EPA compliance levels. I actually have a little problem thinking about the levels that we consider good, which were actually, I believe, brought out in the 70s and 80s. And with all the recent industrialization and gas production, I think that these levels should be reconsidered and regulations made to avoid long-term environmental impacts to our community here. It always leads me to think that a few years ago, 100 years ago, we had King Coal here. And we always thought, oh, well, you know, everything was done to allow for jobs for the community at large. And it was great. People from Eastern Europe came here and were able to bring their families. Unfortunately, initially, there was a big outbreak of lung-related illnesses. That's the early problem. That's what we see now in a few states like Texas and Oklahoma as well as Colorado. However, the long-term effects is what really worries me. Because of King Coal, we ended up having one of the highest rates of thyroid cancer in the United States. We still have a very high cancer rate. Some of these VOCs and some of these air pollutants that we have can also cause not only breast cancer, but cancer of the bladder as well. Okay, these are the long-term effects that we're still paying for. It took you know, the 1960s and 70s to get the Black Lung Commission to come and help us out. Who's going to help us out, you know, when all of this industrialization comes in? I'm hoping that you folks will at least think not so much as to the present, but also think about the future that we leave our children. Keep in mind, somewhat biblical, those who forget the past are destined to repeat it. Thank you very much.
C-O-L-V-E-R, and I'm from Harvey's Lake. I want to say first that I'm also a landowner, and would like to clarify that a landowner does not have to be a leaser. Okay? I came tonight to express my concerns about DEP's decision to consider approving Chief Gallagher's permit to construct the Herkey Natural Gas Compressor Station in Wyoming County. I understand that the station will include 8 engines, 2 hydration units, reboilers, and other equipment. I am deeply concerned about the potential health impacts from regional air quality degradation caused by the station and other pieces of natural gas equipment. I highly recommend that Pennsylvania DEP take a cumulative look at harmful air pollution from this station, as well as other possible interrelated equipment. As DEP should be aware, VOCs and nitrogen oxides, as well as methane from compressor stations, produce ground-level ozone, which causes a variety of respiratory problems, including asthma. I understand that emission levels are below the required threshold for this permit, but it is imperative to analyze how even the legal pollutant levels from this station will impact public health over a long period of time. This type of risk analysis must be part of the decision-making process in approving or denying these permits, or in selecting technologies if the permit is approved. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Matt Walker.
Matt Walker, station's 8 engines and 2 dehydrators have the potential to emit tons of harmful pollutants each year into the air we all breathe. The Northeast Regional Office should take the recent Lathrop explosion as a good reason to perform a full review of the safety of permitting so many compressor stations in this region at such a rapid pace. This regional office should require emissions limitations that are at least as stringent as those being imposed at similar chief-owned facilities by the North Central Regional Office of DEP. For 2 points of comparison, PA-DEP has been setting VOC limits at 5.17 tons, whereas this permit allows 35.03 tons, almost 7 times higher. VOCs have been linked to devastating neurological and developmental issues, brain damage, liver, and kidney damage. That regional office also set formaldehyde limits at 0.53 tons per year, significantly lower than the 4.76 tons expected to be emitted from this station, almost 9 times higher. Formaldehyde causes skin, eye, nose, and throat irritation. If they can do it in Bradford County, why not Wyoming County? The council saw no evidence of a PA-DEP review memo for this station when performing a follow-up review. We request to have this completed and made publicly available, and for public comment period to be extended on this permit for this reason. This is an essential part of providing the public with information during the follow-up review, and a copy should always be attached with the file, and it never is at the regional office. The council requests that the department perform an aggregation analysis of all equipment that may be interconnected with other natural gas equipment, such as other stations, pipelines, and wells. In fact, the council used DEP's EFAX website and found several pieces of chief-owned natural gas equipment, including the Herkey Compressor Station and the Chapin dehydration facility, which appear to be part of the same interdependent system. With some pollutants like NOx so close to tripping major source thresholds, it is currently unclear how the PA-DEP can be certain that this facility, in conjunction with others, should not be regulated as a major source of pollution rather than the proposed minor source. The council also requests more specific information on how PA-DEP is analyzing projected air emissions at the local and county levels from this and other facilities to ensure that the increasing number of natural gas emission sources are not cumulatively degrading air quality. How is the department ensuring that these emissions won't exceed the national ambient air quality standards, especially in counties such as this one with the monitors? The closest monitor to this site is over 20 miles away and in the wrong direction. It's not downwind. This region's ozone standards may be in jeopardy of being blown not only by reactions in the air from NOx and VOCs from the station, but also methane. Hundreds of climate experts working with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, have concluded that methane contributes significantly to increased amounts of ground-level ozone. A United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, report also considers methane an ozone precursor. The report suggests that reducing methane emissions from natural gas operations is one way to control ozone. Ground-level ozone has been linked to a variety of respiratory diseases and associated with cancer, stroke, and premature death. The council urges the department to conduct a greenhouse gas emissions calculation for this facility as required by law. It is hard to believe that the chief's calculations of about 75,000 tons per year of greenhouse gases accounts for all fugitive emissions as required by the Greenhouse Gas Development. Besides greenhouse gas emissions from engines and oxidation catalysts, this EPA rule requires reporting of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide emissions from the following sources: reciprocating compressor rod tapping venting, centrifugal compressor venting, transmission storage tanks, blow-down vent stacks, natural gas pneumatic device venting, and equipment leaks from valves, connectors, open-ended lines, pressure relief valves, and meters. The council also insists that the department perform their own best available technology analysis. If PA-DEP decides to improve the station, the council urges you to require Chief to use technologies that would bring emissions of harmful pollutants as low as technologically possible, regardless of what the cost-benefit analyses conclude. The council encourages the department to require technologies and practices from EPA Natural Gas Oil Program as a way to cut hazardous air emissions and methane. We also once again invite Chief to voluntarily participate in the program. PA-DEP North Central Region recently performed a review of this natural gas oil program and required additional best management practices. The council urges this regional office to also perform this type of review. The council suggests specifically that the department require emergency shutdown system and purge pressure shutdown controls to be operated in a way that prevents blowdowns of methane. Finally, the council recommends emissions testing about once every 3 months, which PA-DEP North Central Region recently required for a similar chief facility. To Please do your due diligence in researching suggestions you hear tonight fully before responding and before approving any plan approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Wood. Second by John Schooley. John? Joanne?
John Schooley, Joanschoolley. I will be sending in a testimony, but I pretty much has been said what I would want you to hear. And I am a landowner with some property that was almost out in the Fairmount Township area that in Canada was going to have some exploratory wells. And anyway, so it got me very interested in this, but it just made me very concerned about what's going on here in Wyoming County, and I live in the Dallas area and work with people on the compressor station there. So anyway, I'm better off sending you my statement.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Fred Willow. Last chance, Fred Willow. Okay, thank you. And Kristen Landon.
Kristen Landon, L-A-N-D-O-N, Maker Herkey Road, Mechanic, Pennsylvania. Good evening. I'm a homeowner living within a mile of the proposed Herkey Compressor Station located off Baker Herkey Road in Washington Township. I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns about the proposed compressor station. I have three main concerns about the construction of this facility: safety, air quality, and noise. I have sat through your presentation this evening and heard all of the information regarding the safety and protections you have proposed. We all know these stations are necessary evils to develop the Marcellus Shale in this area. However, let us not forget that they are inherently dangerous, as large volumes of explosive gas is traveling through this facility and associated gathering and transmission lines daily. Even though the company states they are employing stringent safety measures, only 8 miles away from this proposed compressor station, we just recently had an example of a compressor station explosion, as was witnessed in the Williams Station Lathrop explosion on May 29, 2012. Regardless of the cause, the important thing to remember is that the accident did happen, and luckily no one was hurt. I implore Chief Gathering to install whatever safety measures are available, regardless of the cost, to protect its own employees as well as the surrounding residences. I would also hope that the contractors they select to build, install, and inspect the facility are not chosen on a least cost bid basis, but on a quality and best safety record basis. We all have experienced you get what you pay for in our own lives, and in this case, we as residents want the very best, top-of-the-line construction practices and safety measures available. I also want Chief Gathering and the DEP to know that this station is not being located in the middle of nowhere. Within a mile radius of this site, there are over 60 residences containing families, parents, grandparents, and children. Although I do not have an exact population count, I do know that conservatively, there are approximately 30 children under 12 living in the 1 mile radius. I am extremely concerned about the emissions from this facility and other future facilities and how it will affect my family and my neighbor's health. On Baker Herkey Road, there are multiple individuals that have asthma. While I realize the addition of this station will have a small effect on the air quality, as additional engines are added and as other compressor stations are permitted in the surrounding area, the air quality of this area stands to degrade significantly. Therefore, it is important that DEP require the best, reliable emission controls available, regardless of the cost, be installed by Chief Gathering in order to approve the permit. I understand that there are some less reliable emissions controls that are favored by these gathering companies. However, they are not considered reliable and should not be approved at this location. Let me repeat this. I understand that there are some less reliable emission controls that are favored by these gathering companies. However, they are not considered reliable and should not be approved at this location. Lastly, I want the best sound enclosures proposed for use in this facility to keep noise to a minimum. The surrounding families are used to the sounds of nature and quiet. Whatever can be done to preserve the quiet is owed to the community. Sound travels and needs to be contained to the property on which this facility is located. Also, I feel it is imperative that none of these engines be put into operation until all of the construction and safety measures have been completed, including the sound enclosures.
You have 30 seconds.
I have been told that at different Chief Gathering facility that the construction was very slow and the units were put into operation prior to the complete building being finished. This sloppy construction practice and rush to get into operation created quite a noise issue for those in that affected area. This should not be allowed at the proposed Herkey facility. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the hearing portion of tonight's meeting. I want to thank everyone for coming.
I wanted to speak too. Aren't you giving other people? I signed up for it. And you don't have my name?
Here, strong.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Vera Scroggins, S-C-R-O-G-G-I-S. I'm from Brockton, Pennsylvania, Susquehanna County. I want to say that I moved here out of the urban area. I was raised near Linden, New Jersey. I was raised in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is right next to a refinery. So I know what it's like to breathe toxic fumes on a regular basis. And I know what it's like to have poor quality air, and not just from a refinery, but all kinds of industry that is there. So I'm very concerned that when I came here, I came for clean air and clean water. And I'm concerned that now these compressor stations are going to be built one after another. We have 3 that are proposed right now in the Springville area within a 5-mile radius. How many are proposed for this area? You have 1 now proposed, and I hear from the woman that spoke before me that 60 homes are within a 1-mile radius. Now, this is considered a Class 1 facility. If you have 60 homes within a 1-mile radius, I think you might want to reconsider the classification. Do a study to see if this is truly a Class 1 area. And with Class 1, you have hardly any regulations. The industry themselves police themselves. And I would like to see this facility reevaluated so maybe it's a Class 2 or even higher, so that you will have more regulations and the intervention of the PUC and any other agencies that might be involved. We have families there, and like I just heard now, 30 children. So the impact of the air quality will be changed because it's not just one compressor station. There's usually, from what I've seen in the pattern right now, additional ones are proposed and built. So after this one is built, you will see others because of the additional pipelines that go in, the additional gas. There's so much gas that might come through. So be prepared, Washington Township, for several compressor stations. So I feel this is an injustice to the people of this state, this county, and this is not right for any of us to have to deal with and to do studies that are long-term while this is happening is also an injustice. Why don't you do the studies first and hold off any more building of any more compressor stations, because not only the compressor stations emit, but so do the gas sites
and the pipes themselves. And this is just additional. So every time you have another station, you have more being emitted. So how long will your long-term study go for? Is it like usual studies? A year, 2 years, 3 years? And meanwhile, all the building continues. And then we have to breathe this. And this is absolutely outrageous and disgraceful. And this is happening in our country. 30 counties in this state are being sacrificed so that this industry can do whatever it wants, so that it can just take advantage and make all the profit it wants at our expense, and at the expense of our health and the future generations of this state and of this country. This needs to be stopped and not allowed at all. And I've lost faith in this country. I've lost faith in our political process and our leaders. Profit is not the major reason why we do things. Jobs are not the major reason why we do things. We do things because it's for the health and well-being of everyone. Not just those who want to make a profit, not just those who have land, who think that the air pollution and the water pollution does not spread beyond their facility. That is not the case. We are all affected, and it goes downstream, downhill, and it affects everyone. So I am very concerned about this aggregate. We need cumulative studies and put everything on a moratorium until these studies are done, and then you can possibly allow this industry if it passes the studies. And we don't have to be subjugated to this. Just because we live in the country and there's this low population and that you can think you can do whatever you want, and you really can't. And I hope justice will prevail.
Wanted to speak, someone else?
Hey, my name is Dean Marshall, DEAN, MARSHALL. I live in Benton, Columbia County, along Christian Creek. When I moved my present home 2.5 years ago, I was quite pleased to return to my roots in this beautiful, peaceful area. I soon discovered that the gas well was to be drilled a half a mile away, across and upstream. The pad was prepared, and I began to learn as much as I could about the activities we could expect over the coming months. After attending zoning hearings for water results and seminars on fracking for unnatural gas, I joined the local watershed association and began to perform baseline water testing. As time went by, I began to notice a pattern of mendacity and misdirection on the part of the drilling, pipeline, and processing industry and our state and local elected officials. When any of them were asked straightforward questions regarding the safety of drilling and fracking for and transporting of this fossil fuel, the replies had begun to sound like a broken record of slogans, denials, and ludicrous lies. Transparency about water consumption, contamination, or the chemicals used has never existed. Total aggregate air pollution is dismissed by the industry and by DEP by way of permitting individual wellheads and compressor stations with no comprehensive study of the cumulative impact on our local, state, and earthly environment. This, we are repeatedly told, is just not necessary. Fast forward to 2012, and we now have thousands of wells fracked in PA, and more than 100,000 more planned in the Marcellus alone. Compressor stations, pipelines, metering stations, etc. are being built at a dizzying pace in many areas with little or no oversight by our quote regulatory agencies who are not only overwhelmed logistically, but further hamstrung by Governor Corbett and his hand-picked industry sympathizers and budget cutbacks. I guess this proves the adage that money talks. As Chesapeake and other oil and gas interests $1.6 million in the Corbett's campaign alone. Where there have been known violations by drillers and pipeliners, DEP has responded with such minuscule penalties, in contrast to not only the huge profits of these mega corporations, but also to the scope of the actual and or potential permanent damage to our environment these violations risk. Media has been reluctant to take a hard line and expose much of this corruption and dereliction of duty, most likely owing to pressure from the administration and high revenue from advertising by the industry. Advertising that distorts, diminishes, and denies the real facts of localized impact. Already this year, we've seen fast-track permitting of Mark I pipeline, which will connect to another pipeline, which will connect to the Baltimore area, which is right in the Cove Point where the next liquid natural gas export terminal is being rapidly ready. We've seen compressor stations and smaller gathering areas. DEP and industry wags tell the same story of, quote, minimal impact, best practices, low emissions, and state-of-the-art equipment, end quote. We've also seen that Williams' wafer compressor was not operated safely and was hit by a large explosion and fire less than 2 weeks ago. DEP insisted the facility remain offline until an investigation was completed and submitted for analysis. But Williams reduced operations after 1 day, a move that clearly shows the industry-wide lack of real cooperation with regulators. We have witnessed unfair negotiations for right-of-ways, followed by eminent domain taking of private property for pipelines and water withdrawals. Habitat removal and disruption, and worst of all, the growing mass of chemical and radioactive waste seeping into our water tables, landfills, and air as more and more gas is extracted. Ironically, the same industrial political machine that touts all as collateral damage that we must bear for true American energy independence is putting in place the very infrastructure to compress and transport liquefied natural gas to Asia for the maximum profit. We know what they're up to. We're tired of the lies. This situation has been and will be repeated for decades unless wisdom and responsibility are brought to bear instead of hubris, greed, political purchase power. Will it take a disaster and loss of lives, destruction of property? Perhaps 10 to 20 years from now, there will be cancer clusters and excessive birth defects around one-time centers of drilling, spilling, venting, leaking, and flaring gas extracting and processing sites. By then, the gas and the profiteers will be long gone, and only genocide will be their legacy. Thank you.
Lift up the mic.
Kelly Finnan, I live in Hong Kong. My name is Kelly Finnan, and I was born and raised in Mayfield Township, Pennsylvania, just outside of Hong Kong. My parents bought their little piece of heaven in the 70s and spent the next several years building a stone house together. The house overlooks a small pond above where I spent many summer days swimming and paddling with my friends. I attended junior high college, famous for its strength in sciences, where I studied environmental science and grew to love the concept of natural gas as a transition fuel, or a bridge between fossil fuels and renewable energy. Junior high is also the home of Professor Paul Shetler, who uses enormous understanding of physical chemistry to assist the U.S. Department of Energy and Columbia Gas Corporation in predicting the movement of natural gas deep below the surface of the Earth. This was a 30-year study which, I'm sure, had no small implications for the development of hydraulic fracturing. When my parents asked my opinion regarding a lease on our land, I said, sure, why not? That's when my romance with natural gas ended. I'll start with my personal experience with compressor stations. My involvement in research into compressor stations began with permitting the Shields Compressor Station in Dimmock, Pennsylvania. In my attempt to gather as much information as possible about the station, I learned that, first of all, it's not uncommon for a pipeline company, for example, Williams or Chief Gathering, to design their compressor stations in a way that releases as many toxic emissions as possible without breaching the Clean Air Act. For example, the expected emissions from the Shields Compressor Station in Dimmock included VOCs, which are generally human carcinogens, at a level of 47.49 tons per year, and the EPA limit is 50 tons per year.
about whom, if anyone, is in charge of regulating and investigating violations of gas safety rules in these situations. In this case, an agent from the Public Utility Commission announced that she would not investigate the explosion because stations in rural areas were not within her jurisdiction. I'm aware that the DEP is conducting its own investigation in this case, but I would like to point out that the DEP does not usually enforce gas safety regulations, and is probably ill-equipped at the moment to do so. Obviously, Williams agreed because they restarted the station 2 days later, completely ignored orders from the DEP to keep the station shut down. This lack of gas safety enforcement, combined with the pipeline company's complete disregard for the DEP, has unnerved me, to say the least. Lastly, I would like to list some of the emissions produced by compressor stations, along with their impacts on human health. Compounds on this list were compiled by Wolf Eagle Environmental during their study of air quality and dish access. So first on the list is benzene, which can result in anemia leading to bone marrow damage, leukemia, and death. Xylenes are absorbed readily into the lungs and the GI tract and quickly distributed to tissues through the blood flow. There is evidence that chronic occupational exposure to xylenes is associated with neurological effects. Carbon disulfide, at high concentrations may be life-threatening due to central nervous system suppression. Physical signs of mild exposure may result in nerve damage to lower lateral leg and foot, resulting in foot drags or fall. Dimethyl disulfide is associated exposure. You wind up with irritation of the respiratory system as well as eye and skin irritation. It's also known to cause nausea and overall weakness. Benzene isomers such as trimethylbenzene, dimethylbenzene, methylmethylethylbenzene, tetramethylbenzene, 1,2,4-trimethylbenzene. They are also identified as hazardous and they contain similar adverse effects in humans as benzene. Ethylpyridine, 2-methylpyridine, and dimethylpyridine. Effects of acute pyridine exposure include dizziness, headache, and nausea. It is currently being evaluated as a possible carcinogenic agent by government agencies. Ethyl methyl disulfide, dimethyl trisulfide, ethyl N-propyl disulfide are known eye, skin, and respiratory irritants. I have the sources, so I'll list in the back here. Anyway, it's been a few years since I first realized that natural gas is not the miracle fuel that I initially been taught about in school. Today I like to go running on the road and take walks in the woods, but these activities are frequently interrupted by the roaring of nearby gas wells being vented or flared. With sounds of heavy machinery chewing its way through the woods. Not long ago, I turned around midway through my morning jog when a loud release from our neighbor's gas well startled me and made me think hard about the air that was laboriously sucking into my lungs. Every time I fill a glass of water, I instinctively inspect the water for bubbles, discoloration, or odor.
If there is that,
Perfect. I dread the day that our water turns brown, or worse, the day that it becomes contaminated because it changed visibly. I dread the day our air quality makes it impossible for me to run anymore. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? No one else would like to come out and offer testimony? Sir? Yes, sir.
Greg Sonner, SAU-TNR. We all know why the gas industry is in this state. It's to make money. And lots of it too. No severance tax. Now they got this impact fee, which is barely nothing. So why can't you people use the money that you're making and put it back in there for protection for the people? The DEP is supposed to oversight everything that happens. We've seen a endemic 3.5 years ago with water contaminated that's still not fixed yet. You guys let the gas industry off the hook there in Cabot with your dirty deal that you made with the little consent order between Cabot and DEP. That's not good enough for us. What are you going to do when the air quality goes bad? Are you going to cut a deal with the gas industry there too, so you can, ease them up so they can get back in here and everything? We don't understand this. Why you guys in the DEP let the gas industry run you? They're running this state right now. I mean, they run Corbett. Corbett, he doesn't do anything about it. We invited him down to dinner, and he has never showed up. We invited DEP officials to come down. They don't show up either. And in fact, they threatened me with arrest if I called the DEP one more time. Where's my First Amendment rights? I guess right here tonight. And that's what I'm going to talk about like that. I mean, you guys got to step up to the plate and do something about all the problems that are happening. The compressor station blowing up like that. I mean, I read in the paper that they were not allowed to flow any water or gas through there until they had the DEP permission. And then all of a sudden they did it, and they said, oh, it was a misunderstanding. Well, what is that? A misunderstanding. You guys should have went right back there right then and shut it right down. That's what you should have done.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Same thing when the water was contaminated and endemic, you guys should have shut it down and said, you're not allowed to be in this state until you fix the problem. Or else it would have spread out to 30-some families that were getting water at one time. I mean, really, is this, you know, when are you guys going to do something about all the problems in this state? Because we're getting a little bit fed up with this, you know. We're taxpayers, and you're there to protect for protection, and then all of a sudden you guys just let everything go by the wayside? I mean, come on. I have a letter stating that county contaminated my well. We have letters from former Secretary Hanner saying overwhelming evidence to show that they destroyed the water. What happened to that evidence? Did you guys just throw it away, put it aside, to give them a green light to keep on going? I mean, come on, really. You guys better, you have to do something about these compressor stations too. I mean, you're not talking just about the water, we're talking about air too, and the air quality is not good. There's people that live right by wells that emit gases off of there, and they get sick from it. Can you imagine what's going to happen when these compressor stations start emitting, with these people close by? Thank you.
Anyone who hasn't spoken yet wants to come forward. State your name.
Hi, I'm from Benton, Pennsylvania. I actually have a word comment. Well, I live 15 minutes from the Marconi pipeline, and I know what it's like to live pretty close to a compressor station that you don't want. And I've noticed at these hearings that I've gotten into a lot of heated conversation with people from the DEP, the gas industry, saying they're trying to do the right thing, but there's a lot of pressure. So I just want to let you know that if you want to consider whistleblowing, you'll have a lot of attention, or support from Pennsylvania. And I'm not affiliated with this website, but honestappalachia.org is a whistleblowing website about us. Honest Appalachia is a secure website designed to help whistleblowers to anonymously leak documents to journalists and the public. The website hopes to serve the vital need in Appalachia by inspiring whistleblowers to make critical information available to an informed citizenry. So I'm sure you have some disturbing information. We would love to see it. And that's it. There's something else to that too.
Thank you.
Okay, Brent Jennings from Great Bend Borough. Let me start out with a quote by Justice Holmes. I write throw a punch and the tip of your nose. It's pretty fitting with this. One person said, well, there's takings. There's already court cases decided in Pennsylvania for protection of a watershed where a coal company wasn't allowed to dig and damage the reservoirs and the ponds, and that wasn't considered a taking. There's also on the Susquehanna River, a sewer plant. They're not allowed to use their full nitrogen reduction system because the fire department there does not have an adequate foam system. And that's under the National Fire Safety Codes, which asbestos is also covered too for
protection of occupants and other issues. Another thing, we can't just regulate one station here. We're in an area where we have mountainous valleys. An area where they have issues with Yellowstone National Park, hydrogen sulfide. They got animals recorded since 1899. And then you also have a 1 in 5, or SMOG, 1952. How many thousand people died during that event? Just 1 week, they had 4,000 excess deaths in December. We had a very cold air mass when I was on my leave in December 1993 going into January 94. That air mass was sub-zero. I went through shock. It was a 100-degree temperature change for me from Texas. And what's the lethal dose low with these temperature inversions? You're going to have a band of concentrated air. Will it just dissipate? No, you're going to have that barrier. It's that wood smoke you see in all the valleys around here. So it will happen eventually. If you have a large enough concentration in a watershed, you will have the issue come up. Will a cow die or someone's pet? Maybe. Hopefully that's it. Person died, who will be responsible? You know, will the government pull that they're not responsible? King can do no wrong. And as an elected official, right now, I've seen people violate their consent orders, go publicly saying we had a gun to our head to sign it. That's false filing. They should go to jail. DEP doesn't bring it up. DEP, to the point right now, I can't say to my constituents, you'll protect them. That's it.
Anyone else? Give a chance to speak. Okay.
I'd just like to address to DEP that I have asthma, I have COPD, and I have a lung disease called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. My pulmonary function test for the last 8 years has been fairly stable, 44 to 46%. This last year, I dropped to 36 to 39%. I have a question. What is that? Why the drop in 1 year? Maybe something in my body, it may be the pollution. I think that not only have to look at the compressor size, but the amount of trucks, diesel fuel you have running through this area. I asked about the long-term study. People with lung disease don't have long-term studies. Once your lung tissue is gone, it is gone. You cannot, it does not regenerate. You cannot restore the lung tissue you've lost. So these children with asthma that are getting their tissue destroyed, it's not going to regenerate. It does not regenerate. The University of Massachusetts, Mass General is doing a study on this, but it's in the small animal stage now to try to reproduce and regenerate lung tissue. But it will not regenerate. And I think before you need to have all your facts straight, because people with lung disease, we're depending on you people to do something. And after all the testimony I hear tonight, I'm going to have to go home and say to my wife, even though we have kids in the area, grandkids in the area, maybe we should think of moving. Thank you.
My name is George Turner. I live just south of Montana. I did not come here to speak tonight. I came here to listen. So I'm not going to try and repeat everything I've heard so far, although I agree with the majority of it. I wanted to say one thing. I heard you guys talk about some miracle incinerator that you have that burns 99% of what goes through it. What's the other 1%? That's my question. Because that other 1% gets released into the atmosphere, and that's the kind of crap that we're going to end up breathing. I am reminded of an analogy, and I can't remember where I read it. And what they spoke of was if you have a barrel of fine, expensive wine, and you add 1% sewage to it, you now have a barrel of sewage. Well, you're going to add, who knows what to our atmosphere, and that's what we're going to breathe. Thank you.
Running close to the time we have this auditorium. So is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Offer testimony? First time to offer testimony. Have you spoken? This is for testimony.
I wasn't going to speak because I'm so very weary of all this, but I have to speak. For the people here in Wyoming County, I learned pretty early that DEP wasn't going to help me. We had thousands of gallons of fracking fluid spilled on Doug Heisman's farm, and I called DEP about it, and the spokesperson at that time said, "Victoria, you tell the SOBs to clean their mess up there." And I said, "No, sir, you tell them." And I have to say, honestly, it was downhill after that, the relationship with DEP. So my message, my testimony is, do all that you can, Wyoming County, to work with your fellow citizens, to even try to work with the gas company. I don't know if I would get that, I didn't do too well with that. But you're going to have to do your own work, because there is no one that's going to protect you. There is no one that's going to take care of you. DEP is not going to do that. They will admit to you. Their hands are tied. I have heard that over and over. We don't do anything about it. We don't write the laws. We just, impose them, regulate them. But I have to ask, and I wasn't going to talk tonight until we had this compressor incident, the incident. And then when I saw the DEP, ask them or, encourage them not to start it up, and then they did. That's how it's always been. Who's the sheriff? The tail is wagging the dog here. Who's in charge?
Anyone else? Before we close here. Okay, if we have no one else to speak, that will conclude our public hearing part of tonight's event. I just want to make clear that if you have public comments, to submit it to DEP at the address I gave you by April 30th. Also want to remind people, this will go out on our website this week, that there will be a public briefing about the Lathrop incident Tuesday night, April 17th, at our Lake High School. More details will follow. We're still working on it.
When is the?
Montrose High School. Thank you, Montrose.
So when is the Susquehanna County?
Susquehanna County one will push back after that. We're still working on that.
So you don't have a date for that yet?
She said Virginia was 6. So the date is. There you go, dude. Good, man. Oh, really? I'm living the